125-mile qualifying races have been run earlier this week, and you're going to see highlights with them, with David Hobbs helping me along. Later today, here on the Sports Spectacular, Dick Stockton is standing by to bring you live the record mile run from Houston, Texas, and we'll have a great middleweight fight for you. Marvin Hagler is going today against Homani. That's going to be a whale of a battle, all coming up on the CBS Sports Spectacular today.
CBS Sports Spectacular. Today's show is sponsored by Oldsmobile 1980 Cutlass. We've had a Cutlass built for you. Schlitz. Beer makes it good. Schlitz makes it great. And by St. Regis, a world leader in paper, packaging, lumber, and construction products.
The twin 125-mile qualifying races for tomorrow's Daytona 500 are two of the most difficult automobile races run anywhere. Wouldn't you agree, David Hobbs?
Absolutely, Ken. This is the real pressure's on because the first 4 teams from each heat are the only 28 that get in the race, plus some extras.
And it makes a total field of 40, which you'll be seeing at noon Eastern time tomorrow, running in that prestigious race. Right now, let's take a look at the highlights from the second 125-mile qualifier run this past Thursday here at the birthplace of speed. On the start, Donnie Allison bursts out in front. Behind him, Penargil, Pennsylvania's Ty Scott. Then comes Benny Parsons, who will carry our CBS camera tomorrow in the 500. And then Richard Petty, the unprecedented 6-time winner. There were 33 cars out here, but these were the cars to watch. Up in front, it's Donnie Allison with the lead.
Donnie Allison had the pole for this race. Alongside him was Ty Scott, who's relatively unknown. And they had a great race later on with John Anderson and, of course, Richard Petty, who's not unknown at all. There's Benny Parsons lying in 3rd spot.
Tragedy coming in the 15th lap. The car of Benny Ricky Knotts crashing into the inside retaining wall. He sustained massive injuries and died in that crash. Car number 31 breaking loose and sliding across the track.
He was terribly unfortunate in as much as he glanced off the wall and lost no speed at all as he crossed about 800 foot of grass to run into the spectator retaining wall and was killed instantly.
A 14-year campaigner on the short tracks in Michigan in his first effort at the Daytona International Speedway. As the race resumed, the battle stayed up in front. Briefly, Richard Petty made a stab at it. Back here in 4th, there's Janet Guthrie, who's running very well. She is qualified high in the order for Sunday's race. On the back straightaway, you're watching Harry Gant, Race Hill Farms car, and on the inside, the new driver out of Indiana, Johnny Anderson, just pacing the car well. But as the race wore down to its final moments, Donnie Allison blasted back in front. This was the final lap. And notice the power of the Haas Ellington car number 1 as it roars into the first turn and pulls away from Richard Petty.
Which is an unusual sight to see on these high-speed NASCAR tracks. Look at that gap he's just pulled out on his own. Normally the second car is in a very strong position and can hang on to the lead car, but not with Donnie Allison. He just put his foot on the floor and drove away.
Remember Donnie Allison 1 year ago on that incredible finish? What will happen tomorrow? Well, you'll see it all live and complete here on CBS. Allison in this 125-miler draws a bead on the checkered flag as he storms out of turn number 4 at over 190 miles per hour.
Richard Petty makes up just a little bit of that gap coming off turn 4 here up to the finish line, but it's too late. Donnie Allison's got the race wrapped up.
The question here is, was Allison playing cat and mouse with Richard Petty? We'll know the answer on that tomorrow. Allison first, Richard Petty finishing in 2nd, John Anderson crossing the stripe in 3rd. Young Joe Milliken was 4th, and Harry Gant finished in 5th position. Here you see the Daytona International Speedway now lying quiet as we're speaking to you live from the track. And for just a moment, let's go back to Thursday and the interview in a very busy victory lane that day with the winner of that 125, Donnie Allison. Here's Brock Yates.
Well, really, Brock, the car run awfully good. You know, it's run good since we had it here, but we had a problem with the chassis, and you know, I knew if we could get it really ironed out before Sunday's race, it would be tough. And yesterday afternoon, the last practice, we got the car straightened out where I could drive it, you know, like it needs to be drove. And like I told Haas on the last lap there, I just going to hold it wide open and see what happens. So I'm really happy for, you know, Haas and all the crew and Hawaiian Tropic, because, you know, we didn't start off too good last year. Maybe we'll have a better beginning this year.
We're speaking to you live again from Daytona. Tragedy at a racetrack is hard to accept. And perhaps to give us a little better perspective on what happened on Thursday with the loss of a young driver here, Ned Jarrett, the two-time national champion, can fill us in. He's standing by down there in the pit area right now. Come in, Ned.
Ken, it is hard to accept, and there's a hush that goes over the crowd in the garage area when something like that happens, even though Ricky was not that well known by most of the top drivers today because he was a rookie on the circuit. But the show has to go on, and they accept that and go about it. I think they look at it like most people do in everyday life. You can get killed in an automobile on the highway, and everybody knows that when they drive down the street. These fellows know that it can happen to them when they strap themselves in these high-powered race cars. But I think we all look at it in a manner that it's going to happen to someone else and not us.
How do you feel about that, David?
Well, glamour's a part of motor racing, but so is injury and death, and it's very often the roll of the dice that decides the fate of a driver. Ricky was one of 50 people that ran into the wall this week, and he was the only one that was even hurt. And, of course, it's part of the tragedy of racing.
Let's go to Tim Ryan, standing by. David Hobbs and Ken Squire speaking to you from the control tower here of the Daytona International Speedway, live here on the CBS Sports Spectacular, where, as you can see, there's a little weather right now outside, but there's a very optimistic forecast for the Daytona 500 tomorrow. This is a racetrack for incredible finishes, and if you don't believe it, take a look at this first 125-mile qualifying race from Thursday. 33 cars coming through the banking, preparing for 50 laps, 125 miles in this Daytona qualifier for tomorrow's 500. And on the pole, it's number 28, Buddy Baker. Beside him is Cale Yarborough, then Earnhardt and Allison in row 2. Row 3, Neil Bonnet, Labonte. Row 4 has A.J. Foyt and Whittington. In row 5, Marcus and Waltrip. A celebrated field here, David.
Anybody who wanted to be one of the first 14 finishes in this race had his work cut out, because it was destined to be a fast and furious affair.
Out of the corner comes the field. Tight order. Typical of Daytona, with Baker going out in front. Earnhardt dropping to the inside for second. Into the east banking and getting to 190 miles per hour for the first time. Deployed in third. It's Neil Bonnet with Cale Yarborough fourth. Bobby Allison in fifth.
It's one of the quickest that Cale Yarborough's dropped from the front row to fourth spot, but I'm sure he'll soon make that ground up again.
Back straight away. The pole sitter, Baker, won a 125-mile qualifier in 1979, preparing for the 500, then had the engine break down early in the race, setting a tremendous pace in the early going.
Baker's been running very, very quickly here these last 2 weeks, qualified on the pole, and every day runs laps well over 194 miles an hour. Strong runner.
The hard story of Daytona since 1961. He's in a second, a third, and a fifth. But victory lane has never belonged to number 28, Buddy Baker. Earnhardt, the upstart, won a Grand National race in his rookie year a year ago. Flies down the backstretch in second position and now moves in to appropriate the lead. Earnhardt for first, Neil Bonnet going to second. Bonnet did not look good in qualifying or practice, never over 189 miles an hour, but now, out here, the Wood Brothers car is drafting at 195 miles per hour, David.
Neil Bonnet hasn't looked very strong all week when he's been on his own, but every time he gets in a draft situation, he's really, really tough.
Earnhardt for the lead, Bonnet in second, Baker dropping to third, back battling for seventh. Two Texans, A.J. Foyt, number 51, and Corpus Christi, number 44, Labonte.
And there's a bit of smoke coming out of A.J. Foyt's car there.
Just behind them, that's Richard Brooks. Earnhardt retiring. The engine caves in on car number 2, and that relegates him to the 32nd starting position come Sunday afternoon.
So that shows just how important these qualifying races are, because 32nd is a long way back in the 500.
Bonnet in front. Now it's Darrell Waltrip moving to second, and number 71 from Skyland, Wisconsin in third. But out back, 45, Baxter Price of Monroe, North Carolina, loses control, slams into the wall, bringing out the first caution in this qualifying race. In the pits, Ned Jarrett standing by with Dale Earnhardt.
Dale, what went wrong?
Ned, I think we cracked a piston or something like that to start pushing oil out of it. So, you know, it's just a bad day for us, I reckon.
Well, after such a good day in the NASCAR clash last Sunday, this has to be a big disappointment.
Well, it is. You know, I was hoping to finish good in this race, have a chance to win it, but unfortunately, it didn't turn out that way.
Well, it'll start you way back in the 500. Will that make a difference?
Well, yeah, it will, but I think we'll, you know, survive and be out front then.
1979 Rookie of the Year, Dale Earnhardt. In the lead in this 125-mile qualifier, Bobby Allison this time in the Bud Moore Warner Hodgson car. And you can see A.J. Foyt's red machine up against the wall, still smoldering a bit. Marcus is in second, Bonnet is in third as they go into the West Banking.
AJ's car seems to be laying plenty of smoke out, but it doesn't seem to be affecting his performance much because he's now right up in that lead bunch.
Fourth is Darrell Waltrip, then fifth. That A.J. Foyt car, Baker on the inside in sixth. And they begin to shuffle down the back straightaway. Allison high, Marcus low. Dave Marcus in for the lead. Dave Marcus in first, setting Allison back to second. Neil Bonnet, a stout and steady third out here.
There you see those bumps in that West Banking, which at 195 miles an hour upset these cars quite badly. And there's Gary Baker over the bumps, loses control, and round he goes.
Following him, it is a holocaust. 7, 8, 9 automobiles smashing. Jody Ridley crashing into the infield. Phil Finney crashing. Don Whittington's car getting torn up. The number 05 car ricocheting off automobiles down through the grass area of the Speedway. 3 cars against the wall, and there's Kyle Petty pressed right against the retainer. Caution on the track. The Utzman car also in there. And let's look again and replay at what happened to the 12th place automobile, number 4, Baker.
He starts to spin there. Jody Ridley just collects him halfway around, and as you can see from the replay, absolute all hell breaks loose. And one of the drivers involved is Kyle Petty, Richard Petty's young son. Here you see him in the middle of the picture now, slightly to the left, coming through, and he looks like he's all right. He's in the clear, onto the grass. Gary Baker, number 4, looks like he's okay. Then out of the gloom, 00, slams into him, and Kyle Petty's trapped, and they both went into the wall. Gary Baker, and there's Kyle Petty up on the wall on the left.
Caution out, and there you see Richard Petty walking with his son Kyle Petty.
Kyle Petty's car, they looked it over after they brought it in the garage area, hoping that they might be able to make repairs on it so he could get in the Daytona 500. But after they looked it over, it's not to be. The car has too much damage to it, so Kyle will have to wait another year before he can get in the Daytona 500.
But his dad, Richard Petty, will be going for his 7th 500 win on Sunday. Race director Bill Yazaway in the control tower, hoping for no more cautions. Leaders once again.
Whoa! Dale Yarborough really squirting up by the wall there. Boy, talk about bucket power. Maybe something to think about.
And back into second comes Neil Bonnet. Neil Bonnet puts that Brogan down. Back straightaway. Bonnet moves in on Baker. Can he take him? Inside. Bonnet goes for the lead. Yarborough goes with him. A new leader. Neil Bonnet takes the lead. Bonnet goes in front. Cale Yarborough in second. And Bobby Allison is right there with the front pack. Those Ford cars are running beautifully here today. 4 laps complete, 6 to go. It's Bonnet in first. What a finish this is going to be. 5 laps to go.
The Oldsmobile seems to have the better shape for sheer speed, but these Fords seem to hang on well in the draft and maybe slightly better on handling in a traffic situation.
It is 5 laps to go next time by. 5 to go next time by.
Dale Yarborough thinking about taking the lead, deciding whether to leave it now or 5 laps from now, which is the one that counts. Buddy Baker lying in third. We know he can lead.
Out of turn number 4. 5 cars in that first draft, and then a battle for 6. Back to the line they come.
Bobby Allison going underneath Darrell Waltrip as they come onto the tri-oval. Come out of the tri-oval.
Seems to be a lot of pitching and moving out there that we didn't see a year ago, David.
These cars are really bouncing around. Of course, they're going a bit faster, and every bump in the track at those speeds is magnified tremendously.
That battle for 6 is still a tight one. A.J. Foyt is back there squabbling and having a heck of a time with Terry Labonte. They're the leaders another time, down the back straightaway. Bonnet in first. Cale Yarborough deployed in second. Here comes Baker down the inside from third. Dave Marcus goes to the inside. He goes into 7th. Now Labonte goes back into 7th. A.J. Foyt in the red number 51 stays 6th. Back to the leaders. Down they come. Into the tri-oval. Into turn number 1. Headed for turn 2, and car 21 with the advantage. Neil Bonnet, Cale Yarborough. Yarborough, twice a winner of the Daytona 500 in second. Buddy Baker, the hard luck story of Daytona. Since 1961, he's tried to win it. He never has. Here's Baker coming to the inside. Baker going for second. Wheel to wheel with Cale Yarborough.
He tries that low line, but he just doesn't seem to have the steam to get by without a draft and a slingshot.
Traffic coming up in front of those leaders. I tell you, the last lap will be in traffic. You see that car bobble as it came around the lap car, David?
I hope he's ready for this. It's pretty scary for the traffic.
2 laps to go, and they come to the line this time.
And there's a furious race here for last place, just right in front of these guys who are racing for first. We're going to get a real mix-up in traffic here.
Bonnet in front. Look at those lap cars just in front of these 5.
And they're all racing to get in this final as well.
Heavy traffic just in front of them, and now they peel off like a squadron of fighter planes through the slower machines. Oh, Bonnet almost getting pushed out. Bonnet comes to the inside in a slower car. Look at Bonnet looking for room. He can't find it. He's in the box. He is caught. He moves into the middle. He goes right through the buttonhole. Through the eye of the needle. He's still trapped. Heavy traffic. Beautiful driving. An incredible piece of driving by Neil Bonnet at 190 miles per hour. He hardly lifted. Yarborough stays with him. They sort through 6 slower cars, and they went up the middle. White flag. Next time by.
They all threaded their way through there in an absolutely immaculate fashion. The only guy, Buddy Baker, seems to have got left out just a little bit.
And that was the break these 2 needed. It'll be a Ford against a Oldsmobile to finish this one off. A Mercury against an Olds coming down to the line this time. White flag coming out. White flag is on the track.